This video will demonstrate the steps required to add an organization to the vCloud director using the vCloud director Flex user interface. Now we'll start off by creating another organization. As we see, we have a form that we'll need to fill out, and there's a next button down towards the bottom, so we see that this is multiple pages. Additionally, we see on the left-hand side that we have grayed out options there listing the various steps. So we'll go ahead and fill out some of these fields here, and then we'll click Next. We'll just go ahead and select Do Not Use LDAP to allow vCloud to use its internal user database. We'll go ahead and add a sample user here. Now note the steps that are required to do all this, all these fields that need to be filled out. So for each user, we would have to click on Add, specify the name, password, confirm password, a role, and then the optional contact information, as well as the quota details towards the bottom. Once we're done adding the users, we click Next, and we determine whether or not this organization can publish their catalog to other organizations. We move on to the Smtp for email preferences. We'll just use the built-ins, and for policies, I'll just go with all the defaults here. And we are ready to complete, so we'll just go ahead and click on Finish. Now we could optionally go ahead and allocate resources to the organization after the wizard, but I'm just going to go ahead and click Finish. Now if we click on the Manage Organizations link, we can see that our manual-org is created here, and we see that we have one user in the far right-hand column. Now, in order to start adding apps and vApps, we need to go ahead and create an organization virtual data center. So we'll go ahead and do that now. We'll select our provider VDC there and click on Next. We'll go with the pay-as-you-go model for allocation, and we'll adjust our settings as desired. And we'll click Next. We'll go ahead and set a storage limit here so that this one organization or this one VDC can't consume all of the storage that's available. And we'll enable the thin provisioning and move on to our network configuration. So we select the network pool that was presented by our provider VDC, and it tells us we have a total of 10 networks, so we'll select 4 of those for this particular VDC. Now we'll give this organization VDC a name. We'll just make it really generic here, default org VDC. And we can optionally enter a description. And by default, we do have the checkbox marked for enabled. So we'll click Next and Finish. So those are the basic steps required to add an organization. You'd require additional steps for networks, apps, and vApps. Since video 1 showed us what it was like to add an organization manually through the vCloud Flex user interface, this video will see what the differences are if you were to use Orchestrator to accomplish the same thing. So we'll start off here with the Initialize orgs workflow that I've created. Now what this workflow will do is it'll present you with a single screen of inputs here. So we'll go ahead and set things up, and we'll specify the name of each organization, so you can insert one or more values here. So for the sake of brevity, I'll just do 3 organizations. Now, once we've entered the 3 organization names, we'll go ahead and add 3 organization description names as well. As I add the organization descriptions, I'm making sure to put them in the same order as the names that were entered. Next up, we'll add users to each of the organizations. So what I've done is I've formatted 3 files, vcd-user, vcd-2-user, and vcd3-users.csv that correspond to the 3 organizations. So each one of these has a list of users, their passwords, the role that they'll have inside VCD, and other optional information. Now that we've got all 3 specified, we can reorder if we had accidentally selected the wrong one in the wrong order, because these do need to correspond in order to the organizations that we specified in organization names. So now we'll specify which vCloud host we want to do all these operations on, and we will also specify the provider VDC. So since this is a dev environment, I do have only a single provider VDC there, so I've selected the Gold Service VDC. Now we want to give a default name for each of the organization default VDCs. So I'll just leave it as Virtual Data Center 1 with a really generic description. Now, as each of these organization VDCs get set up, they need to connect to a network pool for the type of networking that I have pre-configured here. So now we'll specify the allocation model, and we'll use the allocation VEP. Now I've set default values of 100 and 200 in this workflow, but I'm going to go ahead and just bump those down to 10 and 20, and I'll go ahead and submit the form. So now in the background, we've got this workflow running to create all 3 of those organizations, add several users to each one of the organizations, and also add the organization virtual data center to each one of those. This would be an ideal solution for a provider that had, say, 20 or 30 existing clients that they wanted to set up in mass, because this is far more efficient than trying to use the web interface or the Flex interface to add each one of the organizations one by one. So we're taking advantage of the vCloud plugin for Orchestrator here. Here in the workflow, we can see that all of the users are being imported to one of the organizations now. Okay, it looks like that has completed. So we'll go back over to the Flex interface, and we see that we have our new org 1, 2, and 3. And we can see that we've got 26, 36, and 26 users in them, and we also have a default VDC in each one. So now if we go ahead and take a look inside one of these, we'll go into new org 3 and we'll administer users and groups, and we can see that we've got a whole big list of group users here, and we've got all the fields populated.